Welcome back. All right, today we're tackling one of the biggest, most crucial decisions any restaurant owner has to make, choosing a point-of-sale system. We're going to dive into a source that compares a newer player, Butter POS, against the industry giants, and it does it by focusing on the real-world frustrations that drive owners crazy.
So let's just jump right in. If you're in the restaurant business, you've probably felt this deep in your soul. Does picking a POS system feel like you're lost in a maze? There are just so many options. The contracts are confusing, and of course, every single one claims to be the best. So here's our game plan for getting through that maze today. We're going to talk price versus the true cost, what happens with support when it matters most, how these systems hold up under pressure, what flexibility means for your future, and then we'll wrap it all up with a final takeaway.
Now, what's really interesting here is the approach this source takes. This isn't just another boring feature checklist, comparing button for button. Instead, it frames this whole thing around the actual problems and headaches that real restaurant owners talk about in online reviews.
Okay, first up, probably the biggest complaint you hear out there, the huge gap between the advertised price and what you actually end up paying. The source calls this one the pain of hidden fees. Sound familiar? And this quote from a Toast user just hits the nail on the head. The charges just kept adding up. I had no idea about the contract length until it was too late. It's that surprise, that gotcha moment buried in the fine print that is just so frustrating.
And this isn't just a one-off thing. Here's a review about Square that highlights the same problem, but from a different angle. Fees felt small at first, but when you scale, they become insane. It just goes to show how those little costs that don't seem like a big deal at first can totally spiral out of control as your business grows.
So the source then points to Butter's approach as a potential solution. It's built on four main ideas: clear pricing right from the start, no getting locked into long-term contracts, hardware pricing that actually makes sense, and a billing dashboard where you can see exactly where every penny is going. So the big takeaway for this section is really simple. You should know exactly what you're paying for. The idea is that the price you see should be the price you pay. No surprises, no hidden fees, period. Okay, let's move on to the next major headache. The source calls this one the Saturday night nightmare. And wow, if you have ever worked a dinner rush, you know that feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach. I mean, this quote from a Toast user is just painful to read. I was stuck on hold for over 40 minutes during dinner rush. You've got two huge problems there: the insane wait time at the absolute worst moment, and then the feeling that the person you finally reach can't even help you. And here's another one, this time about Lightspeed, showing a different flavor of support failure. I had to explain my problem 3 times to 3 different people. Ugh. It's not just about waiting on hold. It's that soul-crushing inefficiency that just piles on the stress when you're already maxed out. So, in contrast, the source lays out Butter's approach. We're talking 24/7 support with actual humans, a dedicated manager who knows your business, and multiple ways to get in touch, whether it's WhatsApp, a phone call, or email. And it highlights a pretty bold claim: an average first response time of under 3 minutes.
The point here is powerful. Your support system needs to be as on the ball as your kitchen crew during a rush. When things go wrong, you need answers now, not a spot in a very, very long line.
But of course, even the best support team in the world can't help you if the technology itself is the problem. And that brings us to our third big pain point: reliability. Or, when your system just decides to freeze mid-service, turning your most important tool into your biggest enemy. Just look at this review from a Toast user. The system freezes randomly. Online orders didn't sync with the kitchen. You can just feel the chaos, right? Angry customers, a confused kitchen, lost money, all from one little glitch. And this quote from a Square user adds a whole other layer. They say it's rare but terrifying when it happens. That word, terrifying, is key. It's not just about the operational mess. It's about that constant fear that your system could fail at the worst possible second and ruin your customer's night. So what's the tech solution here? The source points to Butter's design. It's cloud-based, but it has an offline mode, which is huge because it means an internet outage won't shut you down. It also mentions things like real-time syncing and a fast, lightweight interface that's built for speed. And this all boils down to a really fundamental idea. Your technology is supposed to help you, not hurt you. Your POS should basically be the most reliable employee you have, one that never flakes on you, especially when you need it the most. All right, on to our final major problem area: flexibility.
The restaurant world moves fast. You might expand to a new location, you might pivot your concept, you might even need to scale back. Your POS needs to be able to change with you, not trap you in place.
And this slide really lays out what the source presents as two totally different philosophies. On one side, you have what it calls legacy contracts, which usually mean getting locked in for years with massive fees if you want out. On the other side is a more flexible approach, no long-term commitments and the freedom to add or remove features whenever you want. The source also says that flexibility extends to the setup itself, describing a simple, four-step plug-and-play process. The big takeaways are that a real person actually helps you get started, and your staff can be trained and ready to go in under half an hour.
So that brings us to the big finish. After looking at all of these common frustrations, the hidden fees, the terrible support, the system crashes, the source poses the ultimate question. What is actually the right choice for your restaurant? And it boils its recommendation down to these 5 core values: pricing you can actually understand, support from a real person when you're in the weeds, a system that just plain works, an easy setup process, and the freedom to grow or change without being punished for it. The argument is that these are the things that really matter in the day-to-day grind.
And so we end on this final question from the source. And it's a powerful one. It suggests that instead of asking which system has the longest feature list, you should be asking this: which POS truly understands what I go through every single day? That's a very different way to frame the decision and a great thought to end on. That's all for this one. See you next time.